Hey everybody, hope you are all doing really well today, and I am so unbelievably excited to have the incredible Jen Kem here with me today. Today is her book birthday. The book is called Unicorn Team, and hands down is the most incredible book that I've ever had the privilege to read. In all of my years of business, both in corporate and as the last number of years as an entrepreneur, this book literally gave me the chills. It is so profound. There are so many lessons and so many insights that I have really lent into since I first had the privilege of getting my hands on an early reader copy. And what I'd love to do is chat to you, Jen, and welcome. It's so amazing to have you here.
Oh my gosh, Maeve, I'm so excited to be here. Thank you for inviting me
Yes,
to
no,
play and
no
talk today.
problem. And I'm so excited for you to kind of tell everybody about Unicorn Team, first of all, and why this book, instead of one of the many other books that I am quite sure you could have written.
Well, it's a long story. I mean, this book took, I had a vision for this book 7 years ago. I knew that this was the first book that I wanted to write out of the four master models that my business and company are known for. And even in my corporate career prior to my business, I was kind of really known as a strategist who could rally a team, help shift an identity or a brand identity, develop messaging that would make people want it, and create experiences that would help people try on the new product or service. And so those are kind of my four areas of expertise. And I really knew that I wanted to write the book on the team piece when it came to brand strategy, marketing first, because if there's a contrarian, this is a contrarian take, but also the real take on what it takes to bring a new idea to life.
Yeah.
A lot of times when we think about team and the way that it's messaged, we think of, oh gosh, like I have to like spend a lot and like enroll a lot of people, hire a lot of people. This book is not an operations book. This book is a book about how do you rally the right people around your ideas so that other people will want it outside of you. So this is a book with the lens on brand, go to market, and the strategy it takes to make that happen. And I've been doing this. I always tell people I'm a seasoned chicken, not a spring chicken. I spent over a decade and a half in the corporate world as a um, business to business and business to consumer marketing and strategy executive, bringing to life and to the market ideas that we all take for granted today, including things like video streaming, which we're doing right now,
Yeah.
including how we consume entertainment through Netflix and Hulu, through how we get food delivered like DoorDash. All of these ideas, I, in the corporate world, was the person leading the teams to bring those ideas to market.
Fabulous.
And when I decided to become an entrepreneur in 2006, after realizing that my future was not fully in control for me, like
Mhm.
really, I worked for a company who, by the way, I will say, I loved my team there. I
Mhm.
really enjoyed, frankly, I also enjoyed having the budget to hire people. I enjoyed, all the things that came with a way bigger budget to do things. When I became an entrepreneur in 2006, I realized that the same principles and frameworks and structures that I was using in the corporate world were absolutely critical and necessary in the entrepreneurial world as a startup founder. And I think a lot of people out here do not understand that no one's teaching that. And so when I came out, it was good because I was like, oh, good, there's a market for this information, because I knew that people were being told one thing to do, which is like not as successful. And it's the proof is in the 97% of people who start their own businesses are not successful, unfortunately.
Mhm.
I wanted to change that statistic. And I knew that this book was it, because when people hire my company for strategy and brand and bringing their new product or service to market, the first thing I ask them is, tell me about your team. And not just like your virtual assistant, maybe that's helping you with organize your work, not just maybe even the consultant or contractor that you have building your funnel for you, like Maeve does amazing work around that. area, I also want to know who are your mentors, who are your advisors.
Mhm.
And I also want to know, frankly, what is your vision for you because you're part of the team. And a lot of times we don't think of ourselves as part of the team. We think of it as we need a team. And
Mm.
I felt like
Yeah.
this book was going to change the way that you thought and did the right hard things so that you could bring your great ideas to the world. Because great ideas need this more than they even need the idea itself.
Yeah, absolutely love that. I love that whole idea of being part of the team, not as like you need a team to work for you to help you, but you're actually in the team. And then one of the things obviously that the whole book is about and talks about are the idea of visionizers, strategizers, and mobilizers, and everybody kind of uncovering their own unicorn leadership type through your leadership assessment. And one of the things, so I've obviously been through the assessment and I am an MS, very, very high M, which means I am a high mobilizer. And basically, when I went through this, I was totally honest, I was a little bit like disappointed because the kind of the word in the streets is that you have to be this big visionary. You have to be a visionizer to be the entrepreneur. And I was very, very high on mobilizing. So I am a do, go, go, go. I build all the things. I work incredibly hard. I love doing. And when I got my result, I was like a little bit miffed because it was like, oh gosh, maybe I'm not a true entrepreneur if my my third level is the V, is the visionizer. But what then, after having a conversation with you about it, and this is what I would love to kind of to speak to now, is I actually realized that M is actually my superpower. So I have abilities, doing abilities, mobilizing abilities that lots and lots and lots of entrepreneurs just simply don't have. They have the grand ideas, they have the blue sky thinking, but when it actually comes to like pushing the buttons and doing the thing and building the thing and all of the testing, as we well know, that goes into making sure that the thing actually works, I'd love to speak to, or you to speak to kind of people really leaning into their type. People actually, I've almost got this like sense of empowerment now that I've had that mindset shift that being such a high M is actually an incredible thing. And the weirdest thing, and we haven't spoken about this yet, but that has actually shown in the volume of sales that I am making since I have had that shift of like owning my M, leaning into my M, respecting my M, and knowing that that is not third place in entrepreneur world. It is equally just as important.
I have chills with you sharing that. I have like, no, seriously, look, I have chicken skin. I don't know if you can see it on my freckly arm, but that's like, I'm literally,
Yeah.
this is it. What Maeve just shared is that it is so easy to get into the pressure, friction, and noise of being somebody who wants to start and be successful at something. And you see all the visionaries out there getting put on pedestals. And there's nothing wrong with that in terms of, yes, they are the people with the big ideas.
Mhm.
But those ideas only came true. In fact, the only reason you even know about the visionary is because there was a strategy and there was a mobilization behind the idea that happened.
Yeah.
And that's what I wanted to uncover in this book, because there are what I call the 9 leadership types. And
Mhm.
there is an amazing assessment that I want everybody to know that Maeve helped develop with me. She was the mobilizing strategizer, the MS, that helped bring my strategizing visionizer, I'm an SV, to bring the assessment that's in this book. So when you buy the book, you can take the assessment that we're speaking of, and it definitely will. There's so much context in the book to teach you how to like use it and whatnot. But the point is that I knew that so many entrepreneurs, founders, even freelancers, or people who wanted to kind of create a small services based business, that they thought, oh, I'm never going to be as famous or important
Mhm.
as that person who has the big, social media platform, or the teachers that have this, omnipresent magnetic attraction to learn a specific skill set, including like how to build a course or how to build a membership or how to build a funnel or a quiz. And all of those people who have like people learn from, including Maeve and I
Mhm.
have learned from,
Yeah.
because I've been the person in a lot of ways behind those people. What I know is part of how they got successful is through the power of the unicorn team of the S and the M energies. So let's just really talk about the three energies. They're the Visionizer energy, the strategizer energy, and the mobilizer energy. And the Visionizer strategy is motivated, self motivated by their ideas. So their ideas, they are just turned on, excited, can't wait to talk about it to anybody who will listen. That's the Visionizer energy. All the rest they don't care about. They just care about their ideas, okay?
Mhm.
The strategizer energy is the energy that cares the most about results.
Mhm.
And so they like the idea and they know work has to get done to do it. But if they feel like it can't actually work based on the strategic energy and knowledge they have, they lose their motivation to get behind the idea. And then the third energy is the mobilizer energy. And this is not a one, two, three, like in terms of priority. They are actually just, as Maeve said,
Mhm.
equally important energies. Okay. The mobilizer energy is totally turned on and excited about accomplishment.
Mhm.
They care that every tab is closed, that every email has been read and deleted. They care that if there was a checklist to get done today, it got done, or else they can't sleep at night, right? They need to know that every loop has been closed, every snag has been overcome. They are that person. And what I'm saying is, there are actually a ton of successful entrepreneurs, founders, CEOs of all sizes of companies, whether it's a one person show all the way up to your big Fortune 500 companies, that an M or a mobilizer energy is actually leading the pack. And the reason is people also like to follow doers. And we have been taught on social media that, oh, I love her because she's such has big vision. But
Mhm.
you forgot most likely that they also had big movement. They had big action. And we forget about that because we don't want to do anything if we are a high V.
Mhm.
And V's don't like doing things. They like talking about things and dreaming about things. And S's like me are just like, great, talk, 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 and oh, do. And I'm like, will it work? That's the intersection of the S is like,
Yeah.
I love your ideas, but can
Mhm.
you show me how you think they're gonna like work? Because that's where my superpower comes in.
Mhm.
And I one of my superpowers is I can smell the money. I can smell the opportunity. I see what's worth working on. And I really believe that whether you work for a company or you're doing your own thing, this book applies no matter what. As I said at the beginning of this talk with Maeve, when I became an entrepreneur in 2006, I realized that this was the thing that I needed to do
Mhm.
in order to do it. And I use what's in this book for every idea I bring to life, for every idea I bring to market, including this dang book.
Okay.
I use this book
It's a
to
little bit
bring
meta.
my book to life. So, you know, that's it. That's it.
Fantastic. And then just whenever you mention corporate once again and the whole angle around creative compensation. Okay. So I love that. But everybody in my audience and anybody that might be watching this on LinkedIn, for example, they are experts, they are authors, course creators, coaches, consultants, that type of thing. Okay, so can we talk a little bit about applying those things if you're, in that type of world?
Oh my gosh. I mean, when I became an entrepreneur in 2006, I was just like all of you. I had to bootstrap the whole thing. I didn't have a rich husband. No offense to anybody who does. I think that's great. That's not what I had. I didn't have this windfall of money. In fact, I took a lot of risk to leave my very lucrative $400,000 salary job to become an entrepreneur. And what that meant was I knew I couldn't afford top talent. Like I could have
Mhm.
in the corporate world. I mean, I was like, who the heck's going to work with me? I can't barely pay them $10 an hour. I can't even pay myself $10 an hour,
Yeah.
when I first came out. And so I thought my S brain, strategizer brain, was like, how can I solve this problem and still get what I want? And I want to use an example that all of us should know because everybody understands the Apple brand, right? Steve Jobs being what I deem as a visionizing strategizer, a VS, or the legend, we call
Mhm.
them in my book. He was an ideas guy. He was like, I have a vision to bring personal computing to people's fingertips,
Mhm.
right? He believed also that the computers available to people at home were clunky, ugly, and not stoking creativity. He really felt that creatives were the ones that changed the world. Okay.
Mhm.
He did not know how to code a piece of code. He did not know how to code a line of code, friends. He did not. And he was a broke college student. He met this geeky, mobilizing energy dude named Steve Wozniak.
Yeah.
And he even lived at Steve Wozniak's mom's house. Talk about two nerdy guys who are like living at Steve Wozniak's house. And Steve Wozniak was a coder at Hewlett Packard. And I bring up this story because we're talking about creative compensation, right?
Mhm.
Is that, Steve Wozniak is an M. He's like, but he kept listening to Jobs. And
Mhm.
Jobs was like, not just had the idea, but he had the strategy for it. He's like, this is what we're going to do first. We're going to go into home computer repair shops. Because back in those days, there were like these tiny little shops that also like fixed vacuums
Mhm.
and other things. I
Yeah.
mean, think about it. We think about like even Dyson, the vacuum, who's I know from the UK,
Yeah.
same thing. It's like, why are you innovating a thing that doesn't need to be innovated? A vacuum? Like, who cares? Now he's a billionaire.
Mhm.
Why I bring this up is they didn't have any money, but they had their V, their S, and their M
Mhm.
energy magic, right? And so Steve Wozniak kept his day job while Steve Jobs worked on the idea. And Steve Wozniak, he applied his coding abilities to create the first Apple operating system. And
Mhm.
you might go, wait a minute. So I don't want to build an Apple. I'm an expert. I'm an author. I'm a this. No, 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 no. See, that's the problem. If you think of yourself not the same as Steve Jobs, that's the issue if you're a VS. If you think of yourself as not as important because you're an M like Steve Wozniak, you're missing the point here,
Mhm.
right? They worked without money together for a year. And Steve Wozniak kept his day job because they needed to eat. They needed some tiny income. So I
Mhm.
even tell people who are starting out, sometimes you have to fund your new idea with, let's say, your current business,
Mhm.
right? And not like just jump off of it and like burn it down for your new idea. Or, right? Like so many people do that because they're V's,
Yeah.
right? Or like, you're like, God, I really have this new idea and I need to rally a couple experts or specialists like I did, even for this idea called Unicorn Team, this book, the assessment inside of it, I was looking for a unicorn to help me build it. Right, Maeve? And I asked around. I was like, I really need somebody. I have this assessment. I want it done differently,
Mhm.
right? I don't want it based on what everybody else is teaching because actually, what everybody's teaching, no offense, people, but it's wrong. It's wrong. It's wrong. This is the thing. So I found Maeve by referral by a wonderful colleague of ours, mentor of ours, Ryan Levesque. And I was like, I have this vision and this strategy, and I would love for you to help. And creative compensation looks like, going, would you like to be a part of this? And what's one way we could do it? Maybe we can exchange services
Mhm.
for a period of time, right? You don't want to do it forever because otherwise you're going to be resentful and angry, right? And if you can't also name what is the metric that's going to tell us we're successful together? What's the thing that's going to be like, whoa, we invested some time, energy of our own into this new idea? So when you're thinking about creative compensation, I give you the whole chapter. Actually, let's just look at my book really quick because, I mean, it is a playbook for this all to happen. Um, it's in chapter 10, the performance pulse, which is the creative compensation model. And I'm like, if you can use the tools in the book, the brand cast, the stratagem, and the prototyping tools to then communicate to another unicorn, here's why I'd like you to be part of the team. Now, I can't pay you what your rate usually is. And I'm not saying to ask for free things. Maybe they can waive some of their fee to be a part of the initial startup phase of the business. Maybe they can get equity or a revenue share in that. But you have to be willing to say what you need. And the good news is the book gives you the tool to do it, because it's scary to like go, they would never work with me for free or for such a lower rate. And I really want their genius and their expertise in this project. Right. And sometimes, and actually many times, the answer is going to be no, I just can't do it. But part of this book's work in creative compensation even is like, you got to build the muscles in your mouth to be able to get people excited to be on your team. Because Apple would not be here today if Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak were not committed to this vision. Because Steve Jobs could have like got another coder, but I can tell you that coder's mom might not have given him a bed to sleep in. They did the whole prototype of the first Apple machine in Steve Wozniak's garage in Palo Alto, California, which is now Silicon Valley, the heartbeat of innovation of the world. And it's what I'm saying is, if you're an expert author, that's what I am too. That's what Maeve is too. And I am proof. We are proof that it doesn't matter what kind of the size of your vision. What matters is that your idea deserves to make an impact. And if your idea needs to make an impact, you need other humans to help you do it, especially in the world we live in today. AI, automation, outsourcing. These are three things also we're worried about. Are we going to be replaced by AI? And I'm like, AI doesn't come up with ideas. AI feeds off of ideas that humans create. So if you want to be in the game, you have to be the idea that AI learns from, not learning from it. And so this book is also what I call like preserving human capital, preserving human creativity,
Yes, beautiful.
right? Because we need it. And right now, Maeve and I were chatting about this before we went live. You might see even the title of this book or the subtitle and say, I'm not a leader. I don't see myself like that. Well, that's another mind shift I need you to make. You actually are a leader. You're a leader in your business, even if you're a solopreneur. You're the only one. My goodness, this is part of like what I was saying is like, you can't separate yourself from the team. You are the team. It starts with you. Secondly, you're a leader in your home, right? You're doing things that you need a unicorn team at home. This book, on the surface, this is a business book that'll help your ideas come to life with speed and success. But what it really is a way to operate your life, period. Like, oh, you know,
This
Maeve
is
has,
this
yeah,
is
go ahead. Sorry,
great
jump in.
this one, because I remember when you were here in Ireland and we were kind of kicking off the whole conversation about building out the assessment. One of the things that really struck me was you telling me that you had unicorn teamed your life, and I have literally made it my mission, and it's like the transformation in, where are we, October, November, December, January, in 4 short months in my family life, husband, wife, parents of a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old. So in that crazy chapter, and we have literally unicorn teamed our life, and
Ah,
like, the smile on my face, like I literally cannot explain the shift in things over the last few months. And it's just, so it's not just to be applied to business. It is not just for people who are, coming up with grand ideas like Steve Jobs. This is for people just like us. Even if you are, I've got a few people on my team, but not a massive team. People who's just them and they're bootstrapping the life out of their business, or people who have even a couple of people on their team. And one thing I'd love to just, and I didn't tell you about this beforehand, but it just came up for me there, is like, for people in my audience, what do you feel is the biggest must read chapter that they are just going to have this like, oh my goodness? What is that, like, absolutely ride or die must read chapter?
Well, I think, and it's hard to pick because it was even built in a way that I feel like every chapter builds on the next.
Yeah.
But I will say chapter 13. That's been my answer for most. And it's when a unicorn is afraid to play big. That's the name of the chapter. And the book itself, that chapter is about me and my story of how when I left the corporate world and I had success because I was using this book, not this book, but this model.
Mm-hmm.
And then I also lost it all in 2008, lost everything. And literally a bankruptcy. I lost my home. I was functionally homeless. Literally, I had to move back into my grandmother's house. Thank God my grandmother took us in. Um, and there's a parallel story of another person who was in the same situation as me. And in 2008, she became a billionaire. And I talk about, and I don't want to give the whole story away because I think it's really important for you to read it. In fact, you might even want to skip to chapter 13, read that first, and then go back to the front
Mm-hmm.
because this is the kind of book that I want you not just to read, I want you to use it.
Mm-hmm.
That's why it's called a playbook, not just a book. This book should be used anytime you have a new idea, anytime you want to convince your spouse to do something new, use the book, right? Like, like use it. It is going to change everything. But chapter 13 is my big story, my catalyst moment
Mm-hmm.
where I had to make a hard decision. And it was the framework in this book that got me to rise out of the ashes again. It was the framework of this book that made me get the courage to leave the corporate world and a big salary. It
Mm-hmm.
was the framework in this book that has made me even be a better wife, be a better leader to my team, be a better mom to my kids and helping them understand this model and how they can use it in their life. It's just one of those books that I hope gets tattered and worn
Yeah,
so
dog ear,
that you're
scribble,
just like,
Spartan.
you
Yeah.
know, that's my goal. And then of course, I have a close second, and that would be the middle chapters about um, the motivate track of the model, which is about what we just talked about with the leadership types. So the visionizers, strategizer, mobilizer, and learning your own.
Mm-hmm.
I think that I want not think I know when you learn more about you
Mm-hmm.
and what motivates you, you will notice where what doesn't motivate you is where you need to focus your time on enrolling other people into it because that's when you're going to start to see the pressure, friction, and noise
Yes.
turn into flow.
I think that's so true because I actually put my team through it. So just to see, because I knew now, right, I'm an MS, and I was, I can start to see, right, here's what I need inside of the team for this, and it's really we put everybody through it, and we got everybody's results, and then you start to see how you can start to flourish together. But I even see myself showing up differently in team meetings now that I know how their brains work, how what motivates them, what doesn't motivate them. I can feel myself shifting as a leader of this teeny tiny team, but that is how impactful it is when you know your leadership type.
Totally. I mean, right now, the world we live in, we need us to accept that we are the leaders that the world needs. And when I say leaders, I'm not talking about political office, unless that's something you want. I'm not talking about being the top dog on social media. I'm not talking about even being a New York Times bestselling author, which is something, of course, I'm dreaming of happening. And the next 5 days are really, really important for us to achieve that. But what I mean is like, no matter what,
Mm-hmm.
this book for me, this idea that I had, I know it's going to make an impact. And I think us owning whatever our ideas are, that means you are leading. That means that instead of following and listening all the time, and I love listening and I love learning, please don't get me wrong. But if you're always just a listener and a learner and don't realize that you also need to be a learner, I mean, leader rather,
Mm-hmm.
then we don't know that your great work exists.
Mm-hmm.
And so a leader is only simply a person that we look to for not just inspiration, but action, right? And so that's the other mindset shift I really want you to get, that like you are a leader. And if you don't see yourself like that, it's going to be harder,
Mm-hmm.
you know? And so let's just own that we were born to be a leader, or else we wouldn't be doing this work
Yeah,
as
true.
an expert or a specialist. And I always say one of the things is that in order to truly be an optimal leader to other people, you have to lead yourself first. You
Mm-hmm.
cannot be, you cannot, and leading yourself means while you're taking action, you are leading yourself.
Mm-hmm.
That you are in integrity with the impact that you want to make. And when you are that person, your team will perform better than you have ever seen.
Mm-hmm.
And then your ideas can actually get to people and into the world.
Yes, here, here. I absolutely love that. And it was what a way to wrap. Just absolute gold from Jen Kim. This is a book that, and you know, we all have these books that we read as we go through our lives. That whenever somebody asks for a recommendation, what should I read? What should I buy? What should I listen to? We all have our two or three books that are our go-to recommendations. And I 100% like completely believe that Unicorn Team is going to be absolutely number one for so many people. And we just got to get it out there into the world. So if you want to get your hands on the book to change your life, Unicorn Team your life, Unicorn Team your business, you literally will not look back. So thank you, Jen, for coming on. So excited for you today.
Thanks, Maeve. Thanks for everything. And thanks, everyone. I hope this was really supportive of you. And I can't wait to hear what you think about the book.